you all for coming. I like this. I love this whole our culture, Indian culture side of it. People love to be backbenchers. They feel comfortable all the way at the back, so that nobody's watching them, so that they can be nicely distracted, as they also listen to what people have to say. So we'll always find the front benchers who will be studious, and then there'll be backbenchers who'll just sit there and kind of do their own thing. But I hope I have something to share that everybody gets to learn something from. So just a quick background on I head strategy for Early Salary, and Early Salary is a fintech startup. We started in 2015, specifically solving multiple financing needs that a salaried employee might have. And I specifically head a corporate alliances program that where we very closely work with HR professionals to carve out and solve various financial wellness issues. If I had to define financial wellness, traditionally what we've been doing is that largely as a companies, we're able to solve long-term financial wellness problems, which is we help people in their ability to plan for their retirements. So how do I save up month on month so that when I retire, I should have enough money? But the reality of the world is that while we're on that path of generating wealth, there are a lot of things that come along the way, which could be, aspiration to buy a car, a sudden, medical expense that might come up. So how does your long-term financial plan work when such instances come up is where Early Salary really comes from, which is, can we solve short-term financial wellness issues that a employee is facing? So I'll just start, I think today's presentation, I'll keep it short. I have 3 stories to share, but before I get started with the stories, I'll start with an example. This is the 4th startup I'm part of. So while I've never headed HR, I've always received an 11 p.m. phone call. And this 11 p.m. phone call typically from an employee includes, hey, I am in a lot of currently in a financial issue. My family member is in the hospital, and I need 100,000 rupees right now. And as an employer or as a HR head, typically the response is we are baffled, right? It's 11 p.m. Where are we going to get money from? And typically the company would direct you to the policy of the company. The policy of the company would be that, hey, you need to submit 10 paperwork and it'll take 10 days for you to get that access to money. Or the second typical option is that the HR leader would say that, hey, we don't really have a policy to give out money to people if they're looking for advances. I can't help you. Go figure this out on your own. So these are typically the reason why we get that 11 p.m. phone call is that it could be a hospitalization situation, it could be a death in the family, a marriage that is coming up, or a birth in the family, right? These are unexpected expenses that come up, which a employee may or may not be ready or have planned to kind of solve for. Education fees is another one, right? Like in India today, education fee amounts are only going up, and rarely parents out there really plan for this. It's only on the day of the due date they start thinking, which of the parent is actually going to pay the fees this month, right, or this time of the year. Typically, what we've seen is that there are 3 avenues where people try to find their solution. One is friends and family, but over time, people are becoming more and more uncomfortable kind of going up to them. Second is you can go to financial institutions, which is banks. But banks, again, in a country like India, only cater to the top of the pyramid at this point. And they take a long time. There's a 10-day process to even get or a 30-day process to get an education loan if you really need one. So what we essentially come in as partners to corporates and do is that we become, primarily a salary advance partner, but it's mostly helping employees boost their salaries to solve all these problems instantly. So I'll keep moving. What problem that we're looking to solve at this point is that typically 6 out of 10 employees would be in some kind of a financial stress where they're losing sleep over that. What that does is that the impact that we see today is that we see a drop in productivity. We see people really being worried and talking to friends and family to really solve their problems. Second is that that's when they realize that their money is not enough. When they have these financial issues and say that, hey, if I can't even pay my child's fee at this point, like I need to really go and find a better job, right? And this is very common with the industries that we typically end up working with, which is BPM, ITES services, where income level could be anywhere from 20,000 rupees to 50,000 rupees a month. And by 20th of the month, their bank accounts are empty. So, and that's when we really become as a standalone partner that we come in and work with a lot of corporates around the country. So now, 3 stories. Actually, one of the HR heads of the company where this happened is actually sitting in the audience here. It's a partner company that we have. One of the, Vinod here basically has a insurance coverage from the company, and the coverage was for about 3 lakh rupees. And unfortunately, Vinod met with an accident, and he was admitted to the hospital. Now, we all know every day you spend in the hospital, the bill is going to be added by another lakh. So he spent 5 days in the hospital. His bill came up to around 5 lakh rupees. And guess what? His insurance coverage only covered 3. What does he do now, right? And here, the example that I gave a few seconds ago, he called his employer. The employer basically said that I have a policy, I can help you out, but it'll take me 3 days to get you out of the hospital. He was like, okay, if I spend another 3 days, my bill is going to double, right? So he doesn't really have 3 days to really go have his employer solve this problem. He called his bank. The bank said the same thing. Why don't you go through your application process? We'll give you a personal loan. In the next 5 to 7 days, that money will be there in your bank account. This is when we really came into the picture. Early salary was available as a service to his company. All he had to do was download the app, spend 5 minutes going through the application process, and 30 seconds later, that 2 lakh rupees was in his bank account. He was able to discharge himself on the same day and also save a bunch of money. So this is the power that what early salary really brings to the table. And people like Vinod can kind of always have an option or a fallback plan by having themselves registered to early salary and working through us. I'll go through second example. The second example is more of a company-wide program that we're working with. So today we're working with a lot of BPO companies. What BPO companies today face as an issue is attrition. So they typically have, in an annualized basis, anywhere from 75 to 90% of the employees that quit. And they're always finding sustainable programs where they can encourage people to stick around with them for a longer period of time. And here, the issue that, or the solution that we're constantly looking to solve is that can we help them get better education, the employees that work at these companies? And what we have constructed very smartly is that typically an education course would cost 50,000 rupees to about 5 lakh rupees. And that becomes, again, an issue. So somebody who's earning 20,000 rupees a month, where exactly is he going to get 50,000 rupees or a lakh rupees just sitting around? So we directly work with education institutions. So we work with Talent Edge, Manipal. We're also working with Pearson at this point, where we're creating affordable programs for employees to kind of sign up for an education course without really having to kind of save up a lot of money beforehand. So this is a company-wide policies that we're working on, where can we reinvent the whole education program that a company offers to its employees and make it more inclusive. So what we've seen is that typically 1 or 2% of the employees that end up signing up for these programs because they just don't have upfront money to kind of shell out. So by making it affordable, by making it 5,000 rupees a month, we are able to really get probably another 2 to 3% of the employees to really contribute and start participating here. I'll share. Third story is what we're working on as early salary as a principle is financial education. So what I love about my past, and actually this is something why I'm passionate about, being able to offer credit to consumers, especially millennials at this point, is that it's very important to understand the power of credit. So whenever I meet HR leaders and we say that, hey, we want to come in and be your salary advance partner, and we want to start offering credit to your employees, the first reaction that I typically get from HR leaders is that, oh, are you going to get my employees into some kind of a debt trap, right? Are you going to push them so far that they won't know how to make use of credit? And this is when I tell them this story, which is about myself, which is when I was 20 years old, there was a credit card that showed up in my mail. And it had a nice, actually it didn't have a very high credit limit. It only had a $250 credit limit. And at that point, I was like, okay, what do I do with this? And what is the great part about the community that I was part of is basically one of my friends took me to the side and he basically told me that, hey, cherish this. It's very important that today you might just get, $200 of credit, but you have to think about it 10 years from now. 10 years from now, you're going to be going for a home loan application. Or 5 years from now, you would want to buy that car. At that point, what your bureau score is, what your CIBIL score is going to matter a lot. And that's why you need to, at the age of 20, start thinking about having a conscious credit experience or a credit building experience. And that became really influential, right? Like that's when it stuck the right chord in my head that while credit is a great thing to have, but abusing it can have a lot more larger, longer-term repercussions. Today, especially in the community that we are part of, especially with banks and their aspirations to grow in the fashion they want to, forget this piece that while they're handing out credit cards in the hands of the consumers, they're not doing a good enough job of educating them about what the power of credit is. Right? And that's where we essentially aspire and continue to really closely work with corporates, is that it's not just about offering salary advance to a 20-year-old, it's also them knowing that, what is the power of it and what is the evil of it too. And if both cannot come together, it's very difficult to kind of see longer-term growth within the country itself, because we'll see more and more people fall into these bank credit traps than we get to see like what we aspire to do today. So what we end up doing is that in addition to offering our services, we run financial wellness seminars and programs. It could be a one-on-one session or with a larger group of employees. The idea is to help them in all three forms. It should be about long-term financial planning. It is about educating them about how do they save money over time, how do they have enough money ready for retirement. It is about balancing the intermediate expenses or money outlay that might come through. And it is also about helping people come out of debt traps. So we do a lot of one-on-one counseling session. Like today, what we see statistically is that in a particular company, there would be at least 500 to 1,000 employees who would be in a credit card debt. So we work with them individually to help them repay that debt and also create a better, healthier program to recuperate over a longer period of time. So so what we've accomplished so far, we are still young, we have a long way to go. But so far what we've been able to accomplish is that we have about 250 companies in India working with us. Our app has been downloaded 8 million times. We have about 5 lakh employees that have been impacted, and about 800 crores of salary advances that have been distributed so far. We're learning, we're young. The idea of coming here is to share a little bit about the various good work that we're doing around the country. And we're in kiosk number 16. And so if you guys have any more questions, please stop by and we can spend more time one-on-one on this topic.